How do we go about making a seamless transition of all of our raw material supply lines from the early game Jumpstart factory to our permanent factory? And what research should we be focusing on during this time? That's the subject for this episode of Factorio Demystified. We have set up a few new mining areas. We've got more copper, more iron, more stone. And this in here was what I like to call the interchange, but I want to observe a couple of other things first. Over here on the cliffs, we are now using the red underground belts, and that's because they have a gap of 6, which is needed to navigate some of these cliff jumps. The yellow ones, gap of 4, just don't quite cut it in some of these locations. And then we're using the almighty splitters, the priority splitters, to really make sure our flow is correct. So we've got the iron, the coal, stone, and copper, and they're all doing the same thing. They're pushing the majority of their output, as much as is needed, over to the Jumpstart factory. And it's only when they have extra beyond that that is flowing down on these belts over into our interchange area and further west to our smelting array. So what am I doing in this whole interchange area? Well, I have a few goals. One is all of these belts coming in from the east. That's where our train deliveries are going to come much later in the game, and we'll transition to that. But for now, we're focused on this down here. We've got this V set up with our priority splitters. And the reason for that is, for example, if you're trying to pull things up from the bottom to the top, well, what if this was full and you're trying to pull it up, but there was room for some material from this up on this line, just as an example? Then when it gets up to here and this one pulls the material over, there's going to be empty spots here on this line that weren't filled. So for the very first set of splitters on the line, instead of just having the 3 that will have the rest of the way through, we'll have a second pair in descending order, so they're pulling everything up and making sure everything is as saturated as possible onto the top. It's right here, but it's the top as we swing over and make our way to the west. Then we are also prioritizing everything coming in terms of getting rid of the old ore patches first. For example, we've got iron coming down here and the copper here, and those are filling this first lane, the first one to be used. And then our fresh ore coming up from our new acquisitions down here to the south, that's coming in next, and so that's getting pushed up afterwards. And as we acquire new patches, in general what I want to do is pull them over here to the left and then have them fill in the lower end of the belts, if you will. And then, of course, say this runs out, we can just clear out all of that and shift these belts over right before where these splitters go. So this whole area is just going to be a little bit flexible, but by having it all congregate in this one area and all belts, it doesn't matter where they're coming from, here or south, or if they were way west or north, it doesn't matter. They all are going to congregate right in this area, and we're going to figure out, okay, which ones do we want to use up first and place them in the order they need to be. Another loose end to consider that comes up from time to time is, what are we going to do with the items that we don't need anymore? Totally obsolete. Well, I like to recycle wherever possible. I'm using wood, for example, even though coal is better as a fuel. But the wood is completely expendable and I have no purpose for it. I'm not building any more small electric poles at this point. So I'm just using that as my fuel in my car. But here in my spaceship, I'm just putting them here for sentimental reasons. I've got this as the origin point of our whole adventure. And so we've got our light armor, we've got burner mining drills and pistols, none of which we're going to need anymore. But let's say we really, really want to get rid of these. So I'll just pull out the pistol as an example. And if we just dump this then, right in this chest, then we can't destroy items directly, but we can destroy the chest by shooting it. And when we do that, anything that was in the chest is destroyed. Another interesting possibility that was pointed out, and I think it's worth sharing, is let's say that we wanted more steam power. Well, most of the day our boilers are not running now that they're running on solar. So we actually wouldn't need to add more boilers to make more power. What we could do is add more steam engines and also recently acquired storage tanks. So we'll just get one of those going. And if we grab our pipes, what we want to do in this case is we would just hook up the steam out the back here, because then the boilers can continue running even when these steam engines aren't asking for it, because they're going to fill up the steam. And then we can add a storage tank, or 5, or however many we want, and they're just going to keep running and filling this up. And then during the overnight period, I could just simply stack more steam engines out here anywhere I wanted to. And the extra steam that was stored up would be used to run the extra steam engines and add more power on that way. So basically, even if I need to scale this up quite a bit, there is no reason for me to ever add more boilers here unless I simply want to do it that way. The last time we looked at research, we were going for early game combat upgrades. We culminated in our car as we were looking to clear out our pollution cloud of enemy bases. And then my next goal was mining productivity, which is one of two remaining technologies in the early period that we haven't discussed yet, where we can reduce our pollution further. And we currently have mining productivity plus 10% from everything that mines. Let's see that in action. So we have our copper here, and if we grab one of the drills, we can see this purple bar, which is bonus production, and since we currently have plus 10%, that means for every 10 resources we get out, one of them is free. Well, if it's free, we're conserving resources in the ore patch, obviously. We're also not spending any energy or producing any pollution for that free item. So it's going to help across the board in all of those. And of course, mining is the dirtiest thing that we're doing. So lowering our mining pollution by 10%, pretty nice bonus for us, along with the others. Now, to get to that, though, it's a very expensive research for this part of the game. We had to begin quite a bit further up. There's a whole long chain of items, starting with Automation 2, and this is the upgrade to our first level of assembly machines. And they are faster, they pollute somewhat less, but they also require about twice as much power, so I had to wait to really put these in place until we had plenty of solar power up to run during all of the daytime. But once that was there, we're getting about half the pollution per item from each of these assembly machines compared to assembling one. So that was a nice little bonus for us also. And then continuing on the path for mining productivity, we had several additional projects that are all related to oil or products you can make from oil, and we're not there yet. But then we got the productivity onto the steel axe, which is a bit of a legacy item because there used to be a tool that you would build, an actual iron axe, and then you'd upgrade it to steel. And this doubles your mining speed for the character. Well, why does that matter? Well, it's not for just mining out stuff from the ground, obviously. We're going to want to pick up items. It's actually considered mining when you pick them up. So if we're going along and trying to pick up these transport belts, this now works twice as fast as it did earlier in the game. So that is an excellent boost for us. And then I moved in to inserters. We've got our fast inserter here, and it takes a lot more energy, but also goes much, much faster than our regular inserter. So just for high volume operations, you want to be able to move items quickly. This is good for that. Also, the filter inserter comes with it, and that is used if you only want to move specific items. And so you have more control that way. Again, very fast and quite a bit of power required, but a smart inserter, you might call it. And then we moved on further down this path. We can't actually build the stack inserters until we get into oil, but they can move more than one items at once, hence stacking. And then inserter capacity, the first one just benefits the stack inserter, gives it more capacity, but then the next one will affect all inserters. So once I get this, even our long-handed one and the yellow inserter you can see, even the burner inserter, will be able to move 2 items at a time instead of 1. So another upgrade to the basic logistics of our factory. And then after that, we can go into the tool belt here, and this just expands our inventory slots plus 10, a little more room to carry even more items. And really, that is the end of what I want to do in terms of the upgrades that we can get from red and green science that are going to benefit us immediately. A lot of the rest is either going to be items that I don't care about right now, or it's going to be related to oil. So after that, I just want to go through all of these in order, and there's more down here, and just gradually work through all of the rest of the red and green science items, get them queued up, while we are working towards the next step in the factory. So from here, we are going to be taking a look at, okay, what are we going to do with all our smelting here? What's going to happen in common basics? And a very common question in Factorio that I've been getting a fair amount from people watching is, what do you put on the bus? What should go on it? What should you build locally? I'm going to get all into that in the next episode, which should be really exciting and I hope useful to everybody. Till then, thanks for watching, and Factorio Demystified will continue.